Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I've been using the Hobonichi Weeks since 2023 for meal planning, and I've recently started to think about what it might look like to meal plan in other books if I ever wanted to consider eliminating this extra book. So in today's video, I'm going to show you my current approach for meal planning that I use in my Hobonichi Weeks, along with a few tweaks that I've made since I last shared my approach on this channel. And then I'll show you some ideas I came up with for how I could approach meal planning if I wanted to integrate it into my everyday carry system that I'll be using for 2025, which is the Hobonichi Original or the Hobonichi Cousin. Before I get into it, I wanted to say a really big thank you for your supportive and kind comments in my previous video where I was processing how I felt about my experience with the whole Hobonichi situation. I know it seems like a very dramatic way to process how I was feeling, but nonetheless, I wasn't feeling great about it, and putting together that video really helped me take a step back, reflect on what it was I didn't feel great about, and I was so happy to hear that some of you found the approach I took helpful for your own reflection, and I really appreciated you sharing your stories and your thoughts as well. As of filming this, I still haven't received my order, but it has been shipped, so that is a new development, and I'm hoping that I will receive it next week. I'm so excited. Before I get into this, I had a few considerations for meal planning in general that I wanted to go over. So I guess the first thing that I would think about is, to what extent do you need to meal plan in the first place? And your answer to that is going to be helpful in determining what level of detail that you need and provide further information for helping you select a system to do it in. So for me, I was really struggling with this. I wouldn't say that it is a huge struggle now, and I think that is a testament to how well this system has worked out for me. But because it was something I was really struggling with, I found it helpful to dedicate extra attention to it. So it was a really overwhelming task for me, and after a couple of years of putting in the work to creating as many systems as possible to minimize the amount of stress and decision paralysis I was facing when it came to meal planning, now it is something that I don't think about too often. For others, meal planning might be a lot less important, or it might not even be something that really bothered you in the first place. And if that's the case, then buying a book for a problem that you don't really have, I think, could result in you not really using the book. If you are looking to do meal planning, I would encourage you to think about how much of an issue it is, what kind of problems you're really facing, and then what is realistic for you. So I've seen some people meal plan digitally. I've seen them plan on sticky notes or even whiteboards that are attached to their fridges. So it's always in a central place where everybody can see it at all times. I happen to spend extra time planning in a book. And if you're watching this video, I'm guessing there's a chance that you also like to plan in an analog way. Another consideration is who does the meal planning in your household. So I currently am in a 2-adult household with a dog who eats the same meal every day, so we don't really have to do any meal planning for him. The only meal that we consistently eat together every day is dinner. So that's why a lot of my planning is very focused on dinners. The final consideration that I want to bring up is different meals and preferences. So the level of variation of meals and schedules in your household can determine what kind of book you want to meal plan in. For example, if you are a family that has multiple schedules or different meal preferences, then it might be better to plan in something as big as a cousin because there's so much more room. But if you're in a single person household, maybe you can get by with just planning in your Hobonichi Original, or maybe if your everyday carry is something like a week, you can do it in the notes pages on the side. So you don't really need a lot of room unless you feel like it would be helpful for you to have all of that detail. So I tried to keep these different scenarios in mind when I was experimenting with different layouts, but I do want to acknowledge the fact that my experience is heavily biased toward my own situation. With those considerations in mind, I'm gonna go ahead and take you through my weeks first. So I have shared how I use my Hobonichi Weeks for planning a lot of times on my channel. So I'll make this really quick in case you are new to my channel. In the monthlies, I record grocery bills and also any money that we might have spent dining out at restaurants or buying coffees, that kind of thing. I do think I'm underutilizing these monthly pages, so something that I would like to experiment with, which I am struggling to do because this is not a strength of mine, is I would like to try to incorporate some kind of budgeting in here so that I can just be even more aware of what we're spending each month. In the weeklies, it's a bit of a mix, so sometimes I will put in little memories or pictures of places that I've gone to. And when I sit down to plan, as I mentioned, I do it 2 weeks in advance. I note down any meeting that I know is going to occur close to dinner time because that will dictate whether I will have time to cook that night or not. I typically cook at the beginning and middle of the week, and then Mike usually cooks at the end of the week and on the weekends. Since I plan 2 weeks in advance, and then on the first notes page of the 2 weeks, I will note down what we already have and what we're going into the week already with. So usually that's whatever protein we have in our freezer to work with. Here is where I will note down any ideas or things that we're craving in the coming week. So this is something that Mike and I will add to throughout the week so that by the time I'm sitting down to do my meal plan, I already have a list to work off of. And then down here, I just have the dinner plan. On this side, over here, we have our shopping list, and then I do the dinner plan. Something that I have started to do is adding a line here. So if you're familiar with the Hobonichi Weeks, there's little marks here that allow you to divide this page up if you need to. In this box, I continue to put any events that may impact meals that we eat, as well as late meetings that we might have. Everything is the same on the notes pages, but over on this side, I've started using this space to note down what I've eaten that day because I find it interesting to track what I eat, especially because it doesn't always match the dinner plan. And I think it's interesting to see what we planned versus what we actually ate. I really like this because prior to that, I felt like I wasn't really using the left side that much. And I was sometimes using this space to write about my experiences, but I actually prefer to write about that in the notes pages, and I'll show you that later. I like this better. I think it's a better use of this space. So when it comes to the notes pages, this is where I track grocery shop. I have gotten a lot of value out of copying these things out. This is an example of a recipe. And then I also started recording experiences. And actually, I might run out of pages if I were to continue doing this. So that is one of the reasons why I'm considering using a Weeks Mega for next year. In the back, I use the My 100 page to list out go-to meals that I know we like. And if I'm doing the meal plan and I'm feeling unsure of what to cook or not feeling very inspired, I've shared in previous videos, I've saved a lot of those meal cards that you get when you order from meal kit services. This is just enough variety where there's a little bit of structure and there's lots of places for me to get inspired really quickly so I don't drag out the meal planning process. And it kind of keeps me engaged because how cute is this book? So that's the basics of my meal planning. Pros of meal planning in a Hobonichi Weeks. This is so nice and thin that I can slip this into my purse really easily and very easily reference my shopping list when I am at the grocery store. It's also a book that I keep in the kitchen, so that means that Mike can access it and we can collaborate on meal planning together. In terms of the cons, it's just another book to manage, so I personally like compartmentalizing certain tasks into different books, but sometimes when I put everything together, it can be overwhelming to have multiple books to be keeping up with. And I do understand the benefits of having an all-in-one. So if you have this separate, then it's one more thing that you have to maintain. But since I'm really only using this every 2 weeks, it doesn't feel like a heavy lift, and it's so thin that it doesn't feel overwhelming. Next, we're going to talk about the Hobonichi Original. This is the system that I will be using for 2025, at least that's the plan. And basically the system is a Hobonichi Original, which is the A6 size, and the weekly supplement. I forgot to mention, when I use the weeks, I have my schedule here, and this is what I use to make note of any events that might impact what night I'm able to cook on. So there is a little bit of cross-referencing. I just want to call it out. And so I thought this could be an approach as well, where you could use the monthly calendar in the A6, because honestly, I don't really use these calendars that much. I'm much more of a weekly planner than I am a monthly planner. So I just made this up based on what we already had planned in here. The way I would approach it is, when I'm sitting down to plan, I could plan for the whole month in advance, I could plan for 2 weeks at a time, and I would double check my schedule for that upcoming week, just to note down what nights I'm likely to cook and what nights I'm going to rely on leftovers, and write down the dinners in the day. So there's not a lot of room, but as I mentioned, for me personally, I'm mostly just planning dinners, whereas breakfast and lunch are like choose your own adventure. So I could see this working out really well. If I wanted to eliminate the weeks, then I could already have my schedule here. I could plan the dinners here. And then my thought was, for shopping lists, I could use either a memo pad, like a separate memo pad, or I could use one of the weekend pages, because I'm mainly using this for daily to-dos Monday to Friday, and Saturday and Sunday tend to be low planning days. So that would be a good space to note down shopping lists, or even some of the information in the weeks, like what we're starting the week off with, and ideas that we might have. I'm just going to shift this over. So monthly would be for the meal planning overview, and weekend daily pages for shopping lists, things like that. And then I was thinking, because these also have the My 100 list, I could do the same thing as what I do in the weeks, where I split this up into seasons and I have my favorite meals here so I can quickly reference them. Or if you don't want to use the My 100 page, there are a few blank note pages in the back, and I think this would also be a nice place to have lists of meals that you like to go to. It wouldn't be as much detail, but it would be enough. Pros of this approach: this would happen in my all-in-one planner, and that would eliminate the need for a separate book. And it would also eliminate the duplication, where I'm opening up my schedule and then I'm writing out what's going on the side here. Because it's already here, I'm going to be planning in this way. The cons of this, for me and my situation, meal planning is something that I collaborate on with my partner. And so because of that, having a separate book is helpful, because then it means we can both access this, it can live in the kitchen, and if we wanted to meal plan together, he doesn't have to go into my everyday planner and flip through my pages to help me plan. So I think if I were the only one who was doing the planning and it was a responsibility that was fully on me, it would make a lot of sense to do it in this way. But this is a little more conducive to a collaborative process, and this is more of like a single process. Okay, I'm just gonna move that aside. Okay, so the next idea that I played around with was using the weekly pages in the Cousin. So I used my jelly roll, but I've also used a Posca marker, paint marker, to remove the previous timeline. So the weeks normally looks like this, where it starts at 5 a.m. to 4 a.m. and they've got the timeline here. So I removed those, and then in the top half, I numbered it from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then I actually have my schedule here. So exactly how I use the weekly supplement, I squished it in the weekly cousin so it fits here. I already have my schedule here, which is great because as I'm doing my meal planning, without having to cross-reference or look at different places, I'm able to see right away, okay, on this night I have meetings from 6 till 8. So I'm not going to be cooking, we're going to have leftovers. So I think this is a really nice way to combine everything. On the side here, I had an idea to have a carryover section for what we are going into the week with. So this could be any proteins in our freezer or any leftover veggies that didn't get cooked in the previous 2 weeks. Also, I put a section here for sales. So if you're someone who likes to double check grocery stores to see what sales are running, this could be a place to note down if you're seeing anything that might influence what you want to buy and cook for the upcoming week. A section over here for ideas. So before I even start to plan, what are some things that I'm craving or what am I feeling in the mood to cook, that kind of thing. And then on the other 2 pages, the shopping list. So making use of that left side column for some of those things that I had in my weeks. And then here, depending on your situation, this could be broken out into breakfast, lunch, and dinner as I have put it. So here I drew a line because I know that I'm probably going to have the same thing for the week. And then similar approach with lunch. I can also account for situations where I'm probably going to be out for a certain meal. And this is where I think you can really customize it to your situation. So if you are in a household where you have to coordinate different schedules, this is a place that you could do that. If you have different members of your household eating different things, so maybe there's kids meals versus adult meals, that kind of thing, then this could be a place that you could coordinate those things. So I don't have a lot of experience doing that because I haven't had to, but I think there's a lot of space to work with here if you wanted to try squishing the schedule and the meal planning into the same space. And then same thing with using the back pages. I think I haven't, So I haven't even used the My 100. Similar to the weeks, you could break this up into your meals if you wanted to, or you could use the blank pages in the back. I think there's about 3 pages in the back that you could use if you wanted to for meal ideas. In terms of pros of this approach, if you are an all-in-one planner, I think being able to do this on your weekly page is really cool. I love the fact that the schedule and the meals are right there, so you're not cross-referencing between different books. It's all in one place. And so there's no duplication. Also, there's enough room to account for different preferences and household members, different schedules like school versus work or adults versus kids meals. So I think that's a really big strength of this. So if you need more detail, I think this is a really good place to be able to do that. In terms of cons, similar to the original approach, there would be less separation. So unless this cousin was used as like a household book, which I've seen some people do and I think is a really cool idea, I would be hesitant to do something as collaborative as this in a book that I'm also using for work or I'm taking like sensitive notes in. So I wouldn't really want to have that crossover. But I think if you were using this book, say for like memory keeping, or it was purely personal, or you were sharing this with your household, I think this would be a great place to do it. Or if you were the only person who was doing the meal planning and it made sense for you to do it in here. So overall, for me personally, after doing this experiment, I feel confident that I could make this work in any of these sizes, but for the sake of keeping it separate and encouraging Mike to continue meal planning with me, I'm leaning towards continuing to have it in a separate space. Having said that, it doesn't have to be a Hobonichi Weeks. It just so happens that I love the Hobonichi Weeks and I love their covers, so if I can get a really cute book with a cute cover that I'm going to be happy to look at all year long, then I'm pretty happy with that. This has been pretty focused on Hobonichi simply because that's what I had on hand, but I don't think it has to be limited to Hobonichi. I think this would work with any type of calendar planning system. The key for me is being able to have something that's predated would be my preference for meal planning, but I could also see this working with a digital calendar, and that would be really great because you could both have access to it and you could both contribute to it, and you could access it whatever device you're on, so your phone if you're at the grocery store or on your computer. I could also see something like this working in Notion where you could store all your recipes. So I think what I've realized after a lot of trial and error is writing things down and being able to reference it repeatedly is going to set me up for success, because I'm going to remember what I need to buy and I'm going to feel a lot more empowered to do this. For something that used to cause me so much stress, I guess just writing it out and having it on paper that I can refer to and having that history of being able to see that I was able to do something consistently, all of that has come together to make meal planning something that I really enjoy. So for me, analog works best, but I recognize that that isn't going to be the case for everybody. So I think there's lots of different ways that you can approach it, and I would be really curious to hear how you approach meal planning. Is it something that you spend extra time on? Do you dedicate a book to it? Or is it a sticky note that you bring to the grocery store? Or is there a template that you're accessing whenever you're sitting down to do it? I'd love to know what type of meal planner you are and who you're planning for, and if you have any tips on improving any of these approaches, please share so we can all learn together. If you're still here, thank you so much for sticking around until the end. I appreciate you so much, and I will see you soon in the next video. Bye!